It is my pleasure to welcome a Member of Parliament, Himanshu Gulati, to Network Capital. It's very rare to see young leaders make a mark in Parliament, in politics, and in society at large. It's a pleasure to have you with us, Himanshu. Can you tell us a bit about your current portfolio and what do you do?
And first of all, Utkarsh, thank you so much for inviting me on. It's a pleasure to be here. Um, uh, I'm currently a member of parliament in Norway, been so for 8 years. I'm the deputy chairman of the Committee on Foreign Affairs and Defense. And prior to being an MP, I was also a deputy minister to the Prime Minister of Norway.
So, this is not common. You're still in your 30s, as I imagine, so you became a member of parliament fairly young in life. How did that happen? Were you always interested in politics?
I was always interested in politics. I had very strong opinions, wanted to be a part of changing society for the better. And I'm very lucky that in Norway we have very well-developed youth parties. All the political parties have youth wings that recruit early. So I was, I think, 17 years old when I joined politics out of high school. And the youth parties therefore offer a fabulous platform to develop one's political thoughts, to make a network, to also ascend up in position. So I would thank the Norwegian Youth Party system for the reason why myself, but also I think many of my peers across parties have been able to enter politics in an early age.
Yeah, Norway's clearly doing something right there. But your family is from India, right? So is it common that Indian families encourage their kids to join politics? Because I
Uh,
heard that doctor, engineer, lawyer, these kind of professions are more common.
I would say it's, I think, more common for Indian families perhaps to discourage the children
Yes.
to enter politics. Politics does not always have the best reputation in an Indian context. I come from a family of doctors, and I think my parents wanted nothing more than for me to follow the same path. In fact, I did, in fact, start studying medicine, but decided to quit after the first semester. So it was a very unusual choice, and for many years I've been the only person with Indian origin in the top of Norwegian politics, so it was definitely a very untraditional choice.
It was certainly. And once you took me to the parliament there, showed me a bit about your work. But describe the moment that you first started seriously thinking that I want to become a member of parliament. What was the pathway like from youth politics to slowly bringing yourself up there in your 20s to getting a position?
It's really been a journey, and I've been very fortunate and also lucky with the timing because I became the leader of my youth party when I think I was 22, 23 years old. And we won the election in 2013. And at that time, I was only 25 years old, and I was asked to serve as first the Deputy Minister of Justice. And a year later, was invited into the Prime Minister's office to serve as a Deputy Minister there. So, most politicians, they probably start in Parliament and then ascend into government, either as ministers or deputy ministers. But I was very fortunate that I sort of started in government, being in the PMO, and later, when I was 29, ran for Parliament. So my journey has probably been quite untraditional and different to the common path.
So describe 25 to 29. So you've broken in, but you're still very young. There are lots of expectations that you have of yourself, but you also have to learn about the system. So what was that like?
I think one of the, most MPs, no matter where you go in the world, like in any other career, probably dream of ascending. The very natural path is going from parliament, perhaps to government, to the cabinet. But I was very lucky that I got to see the inside workings of a government, of a cabinet meeting. I attended every cabinet meeting for 3 years. So I've sort of been as close to the top you can be without being it yourself. So my what drives me is not ascending or a higher position because I've seen that higher level of power. It's about being able to use my position to connect, connect and do the impact that I want to do. And for me, politics has always been something more than just something that's local. I think perhaps because of my also Indian heritage, because of my very international inclination, all my travels, my international network, I always try to link the global aspect to what is local and domestic politics as well.
So, w- from the outside, one can imagine that for an immigrant trying to break in and to reach the top, there could be barriers. But what is Norway like? What's it like to be a person who's different than, say, a typical Norwegian, when one thinks of?
A lot of people often speak about the American dream that you can, if you work hard, achieve anything regardless of your background. I would rather talk about the Norwegian dream because I've lived it myself and seen on my peers, my colleagues, that background doesn't matter. It's your hard work and determination that matters. And to be honest, I mean, I know this is often a topic. Is it a handicap or is it to have a different background? I've only seen it as something positive, and I think the world has shown it as well. Whether it's the election of somebody like Obama in his time back in the US, or Rishi Sunak for that case in the UK, or even we've seen recently in Peru, many other places, having a different background is not anything negative. It's all about your own perception and how you choose to use it. So for me, my background has never held me back.
Never held you back. But as a country, would you say Norway is embraces immigrants and they're okay? Because in certain countries, it would be quite challenging.
So, literally, people of all backgrounds, all religions, all colors, reach the top of Norway in various positions. At the same time, we, like many other, especially European countries, have tremendous challenges with bad integration, people not contributing in the workforce, living off welfare, or even being immigrant groups being overrepresented in crime statistics. So we have a lot of challenges with immigrant groups, but I think that also shows that. Bad immigration systems foster challenges, foster people who end up on the wrong side of where they should be. While for those who do work hard, have the right motivation, determination, sky's the limit to what you can achieve.
That's fantastic. Let me just double down on this. What does, you don't need to name any particular set of people or parties or anything of that sort. What does good integration versus bad integration really look like? What does a good immigration policy versus a bad immigration policy look like? And what's the ground reality in Norway right now?
Mm. So the it's about two things. It's about the system. When you have systems that pacify people, and where Norway and the Nordic welfare states traditionally have had systems that do not, in a strong enough way, incentivize hard work and going out there to earn your living, meaning that you can sit in your home, receive welfare, don't really have to do much to make a living. That definitely creates a lot of bad integration, parallel societies, people living off the state rather than working. So we need a system that has the right incentives to work hard and achieve something for yourself and greater society. So that's one thing. Working, making a living, being a positive contribution, both in your society, in the company, or wherever you may work, as well as a taxpayer. That's one aspect of it. The other aspect is values. You may be as educated as you want, have such a good job as you want, but if you on a value basis believe in more medieval style gender equality policies, or support extremists, it doesn't matter how well off or how educated you are. And so integration goes along those both lines, one being economic contributor
Hmm.
in society, and second, the value-based integration, sharing the values of the larger society. And
Yeah.
Norway has been fairly, I mean, we do not have the same amount of issues, luckily, that we see in certain European countries, including our neighboring country, Sweden, or in France, even, I would argue, in UK at parts. But that does not mean we don't have our challenges. And for me, politically, it's also been an important agenda to tackle those challenges head on, and making sure that we don't end up in some of the same worse situations that some of our European neighbors.
Because this is such an important and a tricky issue. So one side would say that there are lots of people in need of, a safe haven, and they might need time to integrate. They might need to level up their skills to be able to get their jobs. and Norway and many other countries have sort of a moral responsibility to do something for them. So how does it look like across, Europe as a continent, or and more broadly as a principle? What should be the perspective?
I think immigration policy in Europe at large has not been based on the economic needs and the needs of the European countries, but on that thought that I think you touch upon, that we have to help people who are in trouble or in peril in other parts of the world. That has also created a uneven immigration where a lot of the people that come are in need of a lot of economic support from the host nations instead of perhaps being a contributor to the economy from day one. Unlike other countries where the immigration has more been based on the skills and the talent and the knowledge that the local workforce needs. I think Europe has to understand that the only way to efficiently help as many refugees or people who are living in war zones or other catastrophic situations is by helping in the regions where they live, while
Mhm.
the immigration, which will happen in many years to come, should be based on in stronger degree be based on the needs of the economy and the host nation itself. So I think we need a shift where immigration is based on skills rather than a very good intended humanitarian wish to help, but which in the large picture doesn't really solve the various crises that we do see across the world.
I see. Moving forward, so you've broken in, like you've started your journey as an MP in your late 20s, early 30s. How does that shift from being, say, a junior minister in the Prime Minister's office? What are you responsible for? What does your portfolio include?
So it's, in our democracies, we do have the power separation. So being in the executive branch is definitely a privilege, a very hands-on experience, especially being there as part of the Prime Minister's team. While in the Parliament, you have a much more flexible, free position. I think something that also suits me, being able to travel around, meet people, meet businesses, meet organizations. You are more your own boss. You form your everyday work more. And being a people's person, being somebody who enjoys speaking to people, I really enjoy that bit more flexible role in which you self identify challenges, even individuals with troubling cases. I can try to affect that. While in government, you are a bit more slave of the system because although much more impactful on a day-to-day basis, you have less flexibility to choose the things you still want to work with.
Right. And do you have uh, to being elected as an MP, you have to go out there and like seek votes and do tell your agenda to people, like.
MP's work is very diversified. It includes everything from working on legislation in Parliament, writing your own legislation, quizzing government in Q&A in Parliament, to also being out there in your own constituency, meeting businesses, meeting citizens, and being a foreign affairs person, politician, traveling a lot, meeting allies, meeting other countries, but then also the media part. I never know when the day starts if I'm ending my evening at home or in a TV studio. So it's a very complex, diverse role where you really don't have one job, but you have five different jobs, including
Mm.
writing legislation, meeting voters, meeting other countries, being in the media, etc., etc.
So foreign affairs today seems much more challenging than you perhaps have seen in your lifetime, or many of us have seen in whatever work lives that we've had. What is your like overarching perspective of Norway with the world?
Uh, you are right that the world has become much more complex just in the last year and a half. In fact, I would say since the election of President Trump, although it didn't start at that, but that has just shown how quickly things can change, how quickly status quos and sort of the absence of conflict tension in an area for decades suddenly can erupt into new unpredictable normals, and also how old alliances, old structures suddenly come into play. So I think this is a new normal where the sort of permanent stability we in some aspects are used to has gone. We have to get used to a more unpredictable world, more changes that and that proves a lot of challenges. So I think we will see a world where foreign policy shifts a little bit from the value-based foreign policy. We've had a world where your friends have been based on that you share the same values, certain principles, to a more interest-driven foreign policy where you go to bed with the people you share interests with, and where whom you share interests with may change quicker than what we are used to.
Mm. And this interest-based thing, which means that Norway has to keep its interest in
Hmm.
mind while also play the various roles that the international order expects it to do you. So, how do you form your perspective? Is it in consultation with your party? Is it with
Hmm.
consultation with both parties, building, consensus? Is
Hmm.
it challenging?
Yeah, it is. And in an ever-changing world, what is sure is that even we as a party and all other parties have to evolve their policies when the world shifts. Now, we of course have those discussions internally in the party, but they're also based on the feedback from citizens, from experts, uh, and I think it has been a challenge in the past few years that the world changes so fast that it's a bit tough to keep up. But the Norwegian foreign policy is based very strongly on the NATO alliance, our friends in Europe and the North America. But then we see that we need to change a lot of the things that have been common for us. We've seen ourselves as a humanitarian, sort of a superpower, helping a lot around the world. But we see now that the way to perhaps help in parts of the world where development is not at its best is not just the old system of handing out money, having out grants, but looking at broader partnerships,
Mhm.
more permanent economic development. So both in the geopolitical power struggles of the world, but also in the more humanitarian international development part of foreign policy, a changed world needs changed policies and new approaches.
Shall we talk a bit about Ukraine, the Middle East, and the US? Because
Hmm.
these three regions, countries have been on the map of foreign policy discussions for a while. So, and with things changing so quickly, specifically with these three regions slash countries, how has Norway formulated the policy and what has your role been?
Hmm. So, when it comes to Ukraine, Norway, Europe has stood very, very firm behind Ukraine. We give a lot of support, both monetary but also military help-wise. And for us, there's no doubt that this was an unprovoked war by Russia. Uh, that and therefore we've seen it as a both moral obligation but also as a security-wise need to support Ukraine to make sure that the aggression that was seen by Russia is not awarded. It does not result in a win, because that could also then increase places of conflict in Europe. That being said, we are now almost 4.5 years into the war, and I think we all wish to see a resolution to this conflict, which would require some sort of give and take from all sides. Unfortunately, it does not seem like President Putin at this moment is willing to sit down and talk. But given the high pressure that Ukraine is putting on Russia on the war field, given, and I would say it's very saddening, but given the high number of Russian casualties we now see every month, I think we will end up in a situation where Russia does not have a choice but to sit down and try to reach an agreement. So, my hope is that this unfortunate war is now starting its last phase,
Hmm.
and I hope it ends in some sort of agreement so we don't have to see unnecessary casualties on both sides. Uh, when it comes to the Middle East and the US, I think this is an example of changes that were not expected and where a sudden shift in policies have created situations that, are really not on our long-term uh,
Mhm.
map, but has to be dealt with because the US is the most powerful country in the world. It is the pillar of the NATO alliance, the security alliances of the world for decades. And despite there being shift in tones, sudden shift in policies, President Trump being extremely untraditional, making remarks from time to another that are neither diplomatically fit any diplomatic context or often acceptable even. Um, we have to navigate in this thing because but my point is that just because President Trump is untraditional, just because he comes with viewpoints and actions that are a big shift to what we are used to in the NATO alliance, or even what is we are used, I think Americans are used to, and we shouldn't throw the American relationship under the bus. It is an important relationship. We need to strengthen and build on it, but also be clear when things are said that are not okay for us as friends. What the Middle East war has shown us is how little the world is. One attack, one incident, or even one statement about something in the Hormuz Strait has immediate effect on prices of fuel, prices on food, interest rates, and other things, ability to move, fly for people all across the world. So we can no longer treat what is happening somewhere far off in distant shores as something that's not our problem. It is our problem, and it also affects us and our citizens very directly. I think we all want the situation in the Middle East to calm down, and new stability, new harmony to come. But we also have to address and understand the security concerns that are there. A nuclear Iran is not a good Iran for the rest of the world. And we also cannot accept that ships in the Hormuz Strait or other places are being regularly attacked, and also our friends in the Gulf who are facing attacks on their infrastructure, their countries also have a legitimate need for protection. So it is a complex issue. There's no quick fix, unfortunately. Um, and again, this was thrown at the world 5 months ago. None of us knew this would be
Yeah.
the question dominating world politics, geopolitics, world economy at this point of time.
And what about the country of birth of your parents, India? Like Norway, India, I know you've been very involved, you've held multiple delegations there. So, what does the state of Norwegian-Indo relationships looks like today?
Norwegian-Indo relationship is thriving. There was just a visit by Prime Minister Modi of India to Norway about 2 months back, the first prime ministerial visit in, I think, 43 years. And Norway and the EFTA countries, we signed a free trade agreement with India about a year back, even before the EU signed its free trade agreement with India. So on a economic trade wise perspective, things are absolutely thriving. There's a huge unused potential that we wish to utilize. Today's India is, an economic superpower. It's one of the biggest markets in the world, and in a European context where growth has stalled, where there have been a lot of challenging foresights, being able to access a growing dynamic market like India is of huge importance for our businesses and to create marketing and economic opportunities and potential partnerships for various businesses in our part of the world.
So, you recently had the Indian Prime Minister and the delegation there. What were the conversations like? What was the core focus?
Mm. I think the whole visit of Prime Minister Modi was had an enthusiasm to it. There was a big excitement. In fact, in Norway, he didn't just meet the Norwegian Prime Minister. He met prime ministers from the five Nordic countries who flew in to meet him. I think that signifies the importance of this visit. And I was fortunate enough to have a meeting with Prime Minister Modi. I mean, I've had the fortunes of meeting him a couple of years ago for a more detailed conversation, but this time, receiving him in Norway, what I told him was that although this was the first prime ministerial visit from India in more than 40 years, it actually felt like more the first prime ministerial visit ever from India, because the India of today is a very different India than the India even 10, 15 years back. It is an economic superpower. It has found its more self-confident place in the world, and the way it's being received across the world also shows and illustrates that importance. So, my message to him was that although Norway is a small country, we're only a country of 5.5 million compared to what 1.4 billion in India, we have a important role to play in partnership and development with India, especially with a lot of the technologies we bring within green tech, other sectors, and also with our exports, whether it's seafood or other things.
Yeah, I met the Finnish head of state at the Raisina dialogue.
Hmm.
He was talking about how, the region and India can do much more. You should start attending that as well. It's a very
Hmm.
interesting geopolitical conference that happens in India around March.
Hmm.
Might be.
And I've attended earlier. Raisina Dialogue is a great
Oh, you
platform.
have. Okay.
Even the Norwegian Prime Minister
Yeah, yeah,
attended when I joined her there a few years back.
yeah. So you said that India looks very different, and economic power is obviously one aspect of it. Is there something else beyond economy? Like, do you see India engaging with the world and other countries differently than it used to?
There is something more than economy, and we earlier spoke about shared values, shared perspectives, but you can compare it to the obvious country to compare it with China. China has been an economic superpower, been an important trade partner with the West and almost all countries in the world. But still, there has been a skepticism with countries. We see a skepticism in Europe, in the US, when dealing with China because of issues of IP infringement, of intelligence issues, security concerns. I don't see those same concerns when we in the Western countries deal with India. It's more of a there can be agreements, things may not happen, but it seems to be more of a business consideration, and there doesn't seem to be that doubt of what is the actual intention behind sort of India's growth. So I think the world is more comfortable entering collaboration with India because there's not that concern or doubt about the intention or any ill-intended security or intelligence um, agenda of the Indian side.
And you also handle defense. Before we get to that, do you want to comment on oil at all? Like oil and natural gas, like how's that shifted
Yeah, so
last year or
Norway is
so?
a energy country. We supply 90% of our gas, I believe, to Europe. So we play an important role, and we are very proud of our energy heritage and the role we play. And what the past year and years have shown us, but the year has shown us even more, is how everything is policy. Energy policy is security
Yeah, that's
policy, it's
true.
foreign policy, it topples government because if you don't get cheap energy, cheap fuel, protests erupt. It literally creates chaos and can topple government. So you cannot remove energy policy from anything else of
Mhm.
importance in the world today. Much more, it's become a much more center of the everyday thriving of every community around the world than it has been even earlier.
Fantastic. And defense. What a time to be managing defense for a country like Norway with the NATO angle to it, with just its location. Defense budgets have been increasing or decreasing in your country, and what does your life look like as you manage that portfolio?
Yeah, and with everything that's happened around us, it started, of course, with the Ukraine war being a wake-up call for Europe, and then the new trends we see in modern warfare, drones, other things, showing all countries around the world how they need to update the way they are prepared for the next conflict. And then, of course, the Middle East situation just literally, quite literally blowing up the whole space. Um, Extremely high amount of money is being pumped into defense. Norway is no exception. We have just voted on roughly $170 billion, $180 billion defense package for the next 10 years, and a lot of money is being put into R&D development as well. So I think the defense space is right now one of the most dynamic spaces with a lot of money being pumped into it to be able to both develop the next tool of modern warfare, but equally important to protect against the new threats we see. We
Yeah.
now see these small drones, whether it's that can go out in the battlefield and take out one by one person. It also changes the scare, the threat, the concerns of the soldiers on the field. So we also need a lot of protection against the threat that new technologies do pose on us as individual countries and powers.
Yeah, for sure. 180 billion over the next 10 years seems like a big expansion in what they were doing. And part of it is understandable because warfare now has changed with drones and also multi-pronged attack, new kinds of alliances, espionage, and the work. So it it is something that Norway needs to tackle on, while it also invests in other aspects of growing the economy. So let us try and wrap up with a day in your life, which I know changes from day to day, but you have to travel a lot. You have very different and impactful portfolios, foreign policy, defense, attending to your constituents. Do you sort of structure your week in a way, or do you just show up to office and the day sort of happens to you?
These are very different. A normal day in Parliament could be that we start 8 a.m. with group meetings in our party, and then at 10 a.m. we meet in the chamber to seat the session of the day. And then after that, a day could be filled, it consists of two, three international delegations or meeting constituents who come to raise concerns, and then maybe a debate in the parliamentary chamber. Then we vote on the bills of the day, and then the evening could often end with a media debate on a television channel. So extremely dynamic, unpredictable days, but it's also very fun, and I feel very fortunate and privileged to be able to be a part of the highest one of the highest authorities and most and respectable chambers of my country.
Okay. Now let's imagine that many, many years from now, you become the prime minister. I mean, no pressure. I don't know if you're thinking about it or not, but does that journey look like for a person who's managing important portfolios and is a member of parliament to becoming the prime minister? What sort of things that you need to do to be considered?
No, I don't have any aspiration of reaching that, but what I will say about politics and what frustrates me about politics and where I would like to be a change, no matter which position I have in the future, it is I think have a lot of we have a lot of prime ministers, we have a lot of ministers, a lot of presidents around the world, but I feel we have few leaders because a lot of the ruling class they become a slave of the systems that they are part of. Uh, so one's agenda, whatever one is able to do, is sort of set by the boundaries already the political system has created. While I think we need more leaders who are able to tear down existing boundaries and really make an impact. Everybody who enters politics, everybody who leads a nation, comes with big visions, big ambitions, big wishes, but to do something. But unfortunately, only a few of them manage to create the change that made them motivated them to enter politics. So, um, if I would get the chance, no matter which role it is in, it would be to sort of be able to break those walls that the political system creates to hinder uh, change and make change very slow.
Fantastic. Is there anything that I should have asked you that I didn't, or any parting message that
No,
you have for our listeners?
I think we covered a lot of topics. I would just like to thank you once again for inviting me on, and looking forward to seeing you again soon, whether it's in Oslo or Oxford or somewhere else.